We use it to develop the schedule for the chapters, and we go through each section, and we are picky about the 10-ish problems that we choose. And so we want to choose the problems that will really has them practice what we want them to learn. We use the PLC time to write the makeup tests and the makeup quizzes, the makeup practices. We use the PLC time to reformat our tests. We
figure out how to grade the tests.
Figure out how to grade. We grade each other's, and we have figured out how are the points going to look between the two of them. We've used this time to talk to other teachers just in terms of explaining what we're doing, and are you willing to help out with this or not help out, or to clarify things with academic support, or to just really go, okay, we're doing a good job, let's try and do some of these grading and see how things are looking. Do we need to reteach something, or are we good with where we're at?
And then also looking at data, because we both taught this class last year, so we compared all of it from last year, all of our test scores from last year, and if what we were doing was making a difference in terms of scores, or if it was just feeling like more work for no reason. And there was a pretty dramatic difference positively for the students in terms of their test scores and in terms of their overall grades in the class as well, which makes it feel worth it, so that's always nice.
This is, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to use that part.
This is how we started off the school year. We went through, we defined the different days, what standards we were going to be teaching with the homework assignment at the end. What we determined when we did that this way is that nobody else could help them in the building.
And we barely could.
And we barely could, because the wording, and they didn't know what they were doing, because the standards that the state puts out are not user-friendly, nor are they kid-friendly. And so throughout the year, using this PLC time, we've been able to transform our syllabus.
That's a math joke.
I know. To look something like this, to where now we have learning targets, and we still list the standards out, but we write it in normal kid language that's kid friendly, that's tutor friendly, that's
Google
math
friendly.
teacher friendly, that's Google friendly, that's YouTube friendly, that they can go through and get the extra help because it says exactly what they're doing there. And then again, we still have the homework and stuff listed, but we found that when we list it with the learning targets versus standards, it's become, this is the target we want you to understand that meets these standards. Can you do it? And then when they do their retake option, it's the same idea. They have practice on that specific learning target, and they don't do any of the extra stuff in the test. It's just that one section that we want them to understand before they move on to another class or the next chapter. So when we're setting up these, we're looking our worksheets and everything else. We're trying to figure out what are the key components that we want the kids to understand. And we look at what we had last year, and we set up a syllabus that is separated by learning targets that we want them to really grasp by the end of the chapter. And then when we set up our homework assignments and review assignments, we have them all defined by the learning targets that we want them to be successful at. And so when they go into their tests, their tests are broken down by those specific learning targets. It's not necessarily by standard, but by groups of standards together. And then it helps them to be able to separate what they're looking for and what we're trying to figure out, what if they know and what they don't know by the end of that time. Once we give our test and grade it, we go over a test analysis with them, which then goes by target and determines if they got the material or if they didn't get it. And if they didn't get it, then they have the opportunity to relearn that learning target and to retest on it after they have already done some makeup time with either Robin or I, or up in the academic support center, or some of the other math teachers, to get extra support on that one target. And then they can earn back a couple points. It's not massive amounts, but they've relearned the material, which has then helped them in all of the chapters after that.
And it's not always all of the standards that they have the opportunity to make up. We'll usually try to pick ones that we know are going to be important in future chapters, or ones that we know the majority of students struggled with. So if there are 8 standards in a chapter, there's no way we're going to create 8 makeups. So we'll pick the top 4 based off what we know is going to happen again. Like, we know you're going to see transformations again, so we're going to give you an opportunity to make it up because we want to make sure you understand it. So before we started it, we sat down and we photocopied one of the tests, and then we both graded it. And we discovered that we were grading really differently, even with the same number of total points of what we'd give credit for. So we try to talk really detailed about what we're going to give points for, what gets half credit. If they forget this, how many points are we taking off? So that it's consistent between the two of us, and so that means we can both help students because we know what we want it to look like. Well, we surveyed students who chose to take the survey at the end of first semester, and they all had a lot of really positive things to say. I mean, the big things we did were reducing the amount of homework so that they were actually doing it. Right. We all discovered last year how incredibly easy it is to cheat on math homework because there are websites where you click the picture of your book and then it has all the work shown. And so we figured that kids, we all, I think, know that kids cheat on some level, whether it's looking at a friend's homework to see an answer or more serious levels of it, and they weren't learning. So we tried to cut down the homework to, what?
About 10 problems.
10 problems.
A night, like an assignment.
And we really reduced the amount of lecture time that we had in that class to give them time to start it so that they could ask questions. And then we came up with mini quizzes as many days as we could write them for.
Right.
So like you're going to be quizzed either at the end of the period or the beginning of next period as a warm-up so that they would come ask questions. And I think it took them a while to get comfortable with it. Yep. And hopefully now that we kind of know what we're doing, it won't take as long next year. But the whole goal was advocate for yourself, ask questions when you're confused, and know where to go for help. And I think tying it to test points forces them to learn those people. We have a sheet and it has all the people in the building who can help them. And they know that they can go to Carrie during second lunch or after school, or to me before lunch or first lunch or before school. And that helps too, because they know there are more people who are willing to help them. Like if I'm sick, they know that they can go to another room and get help. And that's really been the biggest thing, is just ask when you're confused. We know you are, but we don't know what your question is. So ask something so we can help get you there.
Go ahead, Robin.
So the way that Carrie's been formatting most of the tests have the standards written at the top and then all the problems that apply to that standard. So if you're a good student, you read the standard and it gives you some hints for what you should be doing. Some of the standards actually tell you exactly like formulas or things you should be using. And that way it's all organized by standard, which also makes it really easy when they go back to see what they missed. Because rather than looking through every single problem and trying to determine what the common theme was, you can say, okay, well, you missed every problem here underneath this standard, so clearly this was the one that was a problem for you. And so it makes it easier for us to be able to help them because it's organized. And it's all the same questions we had in previous years, really just formatted in a different way. So the test analysis that Carrie was talking about that she will find, they get that back in class with their test, and so they can look and see each problem and why they missed it. So the hardest part for the kids is knowing why they missed the problem, because we don't always know. Like, I know you put the wrong number, but did you put the wrong number because you didn't know how to get the right one, or did you make a mistake? You put a 3 instead of a 6 because it was problem 3 and that's what you were looking at. So we have this test analysis sheet that asks them to think about why they missed the problem and whether it was a calculation error that they put the wrong number or whether it was a conceptual error. And then the test analysis is broken down by learning target, so they can go through, fill it out, and then total up how many points they got. And then we have what we think means that they got it. So in this one, it was worth 18 points. So if you got 14 or more, we believe you understood enough of the material. And if you got less than 14, then you didn't. So we usually look through the learning targets assessments with them and help them figure out which one would be the best one to start with. And then we'll also let them know, okay, this one's worth 4 points back and this one's worth 5. So if you have both of them, then let's do the one worth 5 points because you can raise your grade more. I mean, we talk about it.
We talk about, I teach it first, and so generally what'll happen is I'll go through and have the first lesson, and if something's really rocky, or if there's issues one way or another, I'll go down to her room and talk to her about it and say, okay, here's what worked and didn't work in my class, just a heads up.
Or we didn't have an example of this in the notes,
right.
but we assigned a homework problem for it.
Right, and so we figure those out as we're going, but that's just common practice as you go through. But there have been times where I know that we'll look at, because we compare all of our data for our tests, and so we'll look at different tests, and her students will score really high in one of the standards and mine won't score high. And so then we can talk to each other about, okay, what did you do different that I didn't do when I taught this? How come your students are scoring so much higher? Because we grade the same way, we test the same way, we give the same lecture notes. What was different? And so then we can talk about
and
that.
Sometimes it is, oh, that was the day I was absent.
Yeah.
So that explains it. And sometimes it's as simple as that. But I think for the most part, we try to stay as consistent as possible. And we haven't heard anything from kids. We didn't get like massive shifts into one of our classes at semester. So I think that's good. I don't see why anyone wouldn't, to be honest. I mean, it works out nicely because there are times where I'm more busy or there are times where Carrie's more busy. So it's, okay, I don't have time to do the Chapter 5 rewrites because I have my state tournament and I'm going to be gone. Or it's AP Stats testing, so she knows she's going to be booked. And so it's nice to be able to share the workload with someone. And we both have input on what questions will be on the tests or what homework we're assigning. But it makes it so much easier. And also for students who have to switch classes at semester or who just want to get extra help. And I see no downsides to it, so I think that it would work in other subject areas, and I don't know why you wouldn't. I'm all about the path of least resistance. There's been a lot that we've tried this year, and I don't know if we'll do all the same stuff next year or not. I think that the reduced homework load is good for most students, but one thing we started doing second semester was adding in extra practice problems. So for kids that, really got it and wanted to try more, or who finished the assignment in class, there were extra options for them, either to challenge themselves or to do with the tutor.
Work with the tutor, yeah.
And so I think there are little things we've learned along the way, but I don't think we'll make any drastic changes to next year because we've been pretty happy with how it's been working out.
We'll have to change first semester to match what we're doing now because we like what it's morphed into at this point in time is better than what it was at the beginning of the year. And so we'll change some of the stuff, but it won't be drastic like the beginning of the year was drastic. It was so different. It had never been done before. And so it won't be that drastic, but we'll have changes that we'll have to make.
Absolutely.